It's 7 o'clock.
Hey, there's two Dan Gables.
And I was going to say, we don't only have one Dan Gable, we have two Dan Gables. Coach Gable.
Yeah.
So great to have you with us this evening.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
So it's 7 o'clock and we're going to get going. So welcome to everybody that's on this webinar. And as you can obviously see, not only do we have Terry Steiner in the house, we have Frank Baumgartner, who continues to monitor all the chats and all the questions and will take care of all those as he's monitoring his two lovely children.
Right.
One a month and a half old. Month and a half now, Frank?
No, 4 weeks.
4 weeks. Okay.
4
Hey, I'm
weeks.
not the dad. I don't need to know that. Okay.
Exactly.
But we are very, very, very happy to have Coach Gable back. I mean, the best of the best of the best. And Coach, we couldn't be more excited than to have you here. Thanks for coming on.
Yep, no problem.
So we might as well just jump right into it. Last time you were fresh off a call from the Russians. You weren't talking to the Russians again today, were you, Coach?
No, but
Okay.
fresh off a memo from Stanford that kind of upset me, but
Oh, yeah.
but you know what? I think we can solve this one because they didn't drop them yet. They give them a year. Usually when you give them a year, it means people can step up and help and make a difference. And maybe some of the 11 programs aren't solidified enough to be able to, but I would think that over all the years of Stanford wrestling that they'll have some people step up and not only wrestle next year, but they will continue to wrestle after that because they got a little time to put it together. Usually when you drop the sport right away and you don't compete, then it's harder to do, but it's been around for a long time. And I'm really, we need a good plan there. Keep the sport. We don't need to drop it.
So Coach, what have you heard? I mean, the reasoning is merely financial.
I just think that they have a lot of sports. No, they have a lot of sports. So they got I think you only have to have a certain number minimum, not very many, but I don't know what it is, 15 to 20 sports or something like that for a D1 program. But they got 30 some, I believe, and they're dropping 11 of them. And, and wrestling's included. And I believe I think they were looking pretty good in their future right now. And of course, that's a huge area for the country. I mean, and actually for wrestling, if you look at all the number of schools that wrestle out there in terms of high school, all the kids that come out of there and go places, and we just, we got Fresno back and, we just don't need to, we need to work on a Montana school, but we need to keep what we got. So I think the guys that don't have much, they got a year, but they don't really have a year. They got a minute, so but at least sometimes you don't have any time and you just got to show how you can bring it back. So there's 11 schools, 11 sports that they want to drop and for one reason or another, and it could be the sign of the times right now. And they just have to go to a different level. So maybe wrestling can step up and show how that they can stay there. They can stay. I mean, they can go to a club, but right now we want to stay at the highest level because they are at the highest level.
Right.
In college,
Right.
anyway. Yeah.
Well, if there's any suggestions or anything that you think that we should do right here, and we'll put it in the chat bar and we'll spread the word. If
I think our organization, besides USA Wrestling, which is in the West, as far as I'm concerned, and then our other organization that really pushes and is on top of wrestling quite often, is the National Wrestling Coach Association with Mike Moyer. And, I just think there needs to be a lot of commitment between those two organizations to get a good start right now to make sure that we're going to be there for a long time, forever. So, I mean, it's pretty simple right now to just go on there and start X and numbers, and then you can see how you can get your budget down, because if you eliminate 11 sports, that's going to take a pretty good chunk off that. But that's easy money. We're not looking for. I'm not going to say it's an easy way out, because they already have a lot of sports. But I'll tell you what, we got to step up with our ability to save Stanford wrestling at the D1 level, because we're adding D1s now. And that's the direction we want to go. And we can't let this virus pin us. We just can't. We got to pin that virus. I know it's easier said than done, but it's difficult, because one of the reasons is because I see 4 people on the screen right now. That's all I see. But I can tell you right now, us 4 have the same thoughts about the sport of wrestling, and whoever else is on here has the same thoughts about the sport of wrestling. And you got to work together a little bit. And we're right now in the United States, so probably have 100 people. There's only 50 that's working together, and then the other 50 are working together, and so we're not getting a lot accomplished, and we're battling, but we might be battling the wrong way, but who knows. But I'd say for this, we need to battle all in the same direction.
Great points. Great points. So let's get into, I was talking to Coach Steiner here, and no one did it better than you, Coach, about peaking athletes for major competitions. And so just walk us through your mindset as you set up a schedule. So here I am, a brand new coach. I've got a clean slate. My AD is really flexible. He's allowing me to make my schedule up.
Well, that's not true.
Yeah, I know that. Okay.
Because nobody allows you to do anything anymore, or anybody.
I was just trying to paint a rosy picture there.
Yeah,
Coach.
I mean, come on. I mean, when I was coaching, I had a little more opportunity than what you have today. Today, you're under all these rules, regulations, and I was under rules and regulations, but not as many. And because of that, I could make up my own schedule. I don't think you can make up your own schedule today. So there's certain rules that the conference puts out that you got to do this, you got to do that, and but you got to adapt to that, and you can adapt to that, but you don't want to give into it. You don't give in. You adapt a little bit, and you stay clean. But you find.
Well, let's pretend though. Let's pretend that we walk us through. Tell us how you set that schedule up. How you get those peaks in I talked to Terry and I told him, listen, Terry, if there's a controversy here, I'm going with Coach Gable. All right. If you tell me something was tough and Coach Gable says, come on, you buttercup, that wasn't tough, I'm going with you. All right. I'm just throwing that out there. But can you just walk us through your year-long plan, the plan?
All right. So here's the thing. I was a college coach, but I was also doing international wrestling coaching too as well. But my main job was coaching at the University of Iowa and at the head coach there. So it's pretty simple for me at the beginning, but then it became a little more difficult. But as it became more difficult, I had to do more pencil and paper work by myself, not just what they were making me do, but I had to do more pencil and paper work. So in college wrestling, it's pretty simple to know when the national finals are, except they didn't have one this year. So but anyway, So, you got that date. You got that date. Say it's March 20th, March 20th. Now, as a international competitor, Terry Steiner, Mike Zadig, you guys, they don't have an exact number of days that they work with. I mean, that I can say the number. Okay. So my number was always 365 days. 365 days. Anybody know what that means? What is that? That's a year, right? I'm hoping it is. I mean, I don't know how far, maybe they changed it. But anyway, but, it's not every year. Maybe there's, some years you got extra, I don't know. But the main thing is, I think it's 365 days a year, something like that. 12 months times 30 to 31 days per month. And what happens was you got a national finals. And that's number 365. That's the number for the NCAA championship finals on that night. That day is the championship day. That's the All-American day. But it's the night that is what you're looking at. I mean, you're not telling kids they're going to go for third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. You're going for first. So that's the championship night. So basically, it's easy to say that number 365, if that's the number. But for world championships, for Olympic Games, the night of the world finals is day 365. And then because it's not a calendar year, and it's not always a calendar year even in college, because sometimes they moved it from the fourth week in March to the third week in March, and then there's extra days here and there. But I'm just saying that's a good number to go at, but you don't really have to have that number. So because because really you start now with number one, day one. That's the next day after the finals of the Olympics. That's after the finals of the Worlds. That's after the finals of the NCAA championships, D1. If it's D2, it's another week earlier, D3 and 2 weeks earlier, those types of things, NAIA. But it's the same logical thought. Day one is the next day after the championship finals. And what you do is you have a calendar, and if for a guy like Terry, if you look at the calendar and you see when the next worlds are, and maybe they're say there's only 10 or 11 months away. So now you got to figure out. You don't really have to figure out those days, because you're starting the day after the biggest championship that you have, the day after the biggest championship that you have in that year, where you peak at the highest. That is where your goal is. So the goal is to have, is it 10 world champions? I'm not sure. I mean, is that the number of weight classes? Or
Yes.
and they change 6, 8, 10,
Yeah.
So
Six Olympic champions and 10 world champions.
right. So, so you got in your mind, day one, you're thinking about 10 world champions for day one. That's going to end up, if you go through all these days, you're going to be at day 365, which is not going to be necessarily that day. Could be day 362, could be 340, 330. But whatever that next World or Olympic Championships or NCAA Championships, which is most likely 365, you're going with your highest number that you can go.
Okay.
So you're basically looking for everybody to win. That's how you have to do it. And if you don't do it that way, you're kind of cheating yourself and cheating everybody that's in your program. Now, realistically, is that going to happen? No, it never happens, hardly. I think Russia, maybe it has in history. Not too long ago, I believe, within the last maybe 10 to 15 years, I think the Russian freestyle team had maybe like 8 champions overseas. And I think they might have been in their own home country or close to it. I mean, that's pretty close. I mean, for me, them 10 champs, the highest they ever got was 5. I only 50%. Do I like that number? No, because I won 100%. But because I was going 100%, 50% was way more than everybody else. Because the rest of the country, nobody else, I wasn't battling somebody I had 5 and somebody else had 5. I had 5, somebody else had 1, another person had 1, maybe somebody had 2, and then there was maybe a 1 and 1, But that mentality of going for the max, and say you were a brand new country that just started wrestling, country number 188 or something like that, and with UWW. Well, they're not going to be thinking that way, but they really need to be thinking that way.
Sure. So now you've got everybody knowing that they're going to be there in the finals that night.
Well,
but how do you adjust your training?
You can't cheat anybody. Why do you cheat somebody? Because if you're going for anything less, then you're cheating them. You're not giving them, what they really should be going for, especially when you got 365 days. You don't know what's going to happen in 365 days. But if you go about it in the best manner, because all of a sudden Sunday is day 1 after the NCAAs, you have to have something on that day that you can give your athlete.
Okay.
Mentally,
So you got phases. You got this season.
Yeah, you got about 14.
Season,
I think I had
you got
about
early
14
season.
phases.
You got so
365.
walk us through those 365. Just give us the season.
You got to remember, I don't have them right in front of me, but day 1 is, hey, if I want to just say what it is for most people, for everybody, it's going to be recovery. I mean, as soon as your match is over that night, and that night's over, you're going to have a recovery type of day 1. And it's not going to be just day 1. You can break them down in phases. I think I had 14 phases until the entire 365 or whatever it was. But, and each one of them's not exactly the same. But I would say that you're in a recovery phase. Well, that's recovery phase. You got to remember, I use it for 2 things. Recovery is for the peaking, okay, for the peaking. All right, so immediately you just went from the highest level of peaking to your lowest level the next day. But because you're already so well tuned and so well prepared, you don't fall off the face of the earth. I mean, yeah, I guess some of them that I had, now that I remember, they did. But even if I could catch them, the next day and slow their drop off, it wouldn't have been, that big drop, because one day's not going to make a big difference after you win a world championships or an NCAA championships, or even if you didn't place, that's if it's still, even though it's not your highest day, it still is, because they're probably watching. The guys that aren't in the national finals, the guys that aren't in the world championship final, Olympic finals, they still are, if you've done a good job as a coach, they're still wanting to be there. So they're going to be following it, and, they're going to be thinking about it. They may have got upset and they don't want to go to it, and that's their way out of hiding. I don't like that they won't go, but you can't let them. I mean, you can't
Hey,
make somebody do something. You can't
Okay.
make
Yeah,
somebody do something.
I think what I remember a lot about the environment around the wrestling program at the University of Iowa was, yeah, there's time maybe away from being on the mat, but there wasn't time just to be away, right? There wasn't time just to not continue on the journey and the path of success. You can still do something and still need to be on track in some way. Maybe like I remember one time, Coach, you maybe don't remember this, but I was young. I think it was my redshirt year, freshman year, and I called you and I said, "Hey, I'm really sick today. I'm gonna stay away from practice." And you were like, "No, come in. You can get in the sauna and you can let's just sweat it out, And I think a lot of it was, and I know that now as a coach, but keeping people engaged and keeping them around and keeping them thinking, keeping them just a part of what was happening, and no, don't stay at home. That's not doing anything for you. Let's come in here, get in there. No, maybe we're not going to go through the workout, but you're still going to be a part of this, and you're going to come in and sort out a little bit, maybe get a light airdyne workout or something like that, and then get in the sauna and recover. But I think it just kept you engaged the whole time, and I think that even in the time frame, maybe it's day one after nationals, I think that's what Coach is talking about a little bit, is you still got to be engaged. Yeah, of course, you've got to come down off of that high, hopefully, but you've still got to be engaged in the process.
Well, I'd imagine, Terry, that probably helped with the Iowa Hawkeye mentality too. When you see people coming in and not, you don't take a day off even when you're not feeling well. You are engaged because you're more than just an individual. You're a team, and so I'm guessing that was part of it as well, Coach.
But it is a day off. It is a day off. I mean, because that's part of the system.
Yeah.
You believe because you're not on that mat going 100% and really, you're feeling good or you're not feeling so good, but there's ways of moving that along. So for me, it was, I realized that this is not for everybody. And that's why I adapt as a coach, because I'm just going to tell you, I don't know if I ever knew anybody. And I won a world title in Sofia, Bulgaria. And the next day, I think the rest of the team was going to go on and do a dual meet after the World Championships, except for me and Russ Hellickson. And so we flew to Germany the next day from Sofia, Frankfurt, Germany. We had to stay all night in a hotel. When we got there, I believe we both went out. I said to him, I'm going out for a run. He goes, "Ron, you just won the World Championships." And I got a bronze medal, and I don't want to go out and run. I said, "Well, you don't have to, but it's up to you. But I'm trying to win an Olympic gold medal, And he just kind of listened to me, and so we went out and we ran. I don't mean we jogged. I don't know if you jog in wrestling. You don't jog. If you jog, it's, I don't know what it is. Maybe to recover again and slow down, but get your heart rate down. And so anyway, we ended up in a park. The next day, and the other team was going on to a dual meet, the rest of the guys. And once we ran hard, we actually wrestled right in the park on the grass. And I think it started out to be just a hand fighting match, which is a good thing to do, hand fighting and moving people and stuff like that. But I think we ended up, hitting our knees and scrambling around. I mean, it's grass, it's dirt. I mean, we weren't getting hurt. I mean, we come home with 2 medals and gold medal, and I'm trying to get ready. So now that's one level of thinking, but it's like there was no way he was going to do that. He had no idea that he would be wrestling the day after he just won a bronze medal, and we're on the way home. But it's a way of life, and it's I mean, if I took him to anywhere in the world today, if I took Russ Hellickson with me today, I'd probably make him go out and hand fight out in the park anyway today. So there's no difference. It's a way of life. It's kind of your way of life. But I'm not going to make people do that. But I needed a partner, and I knew that his ambition was still that way. I just do it for life now, but I wouldn't do it for that I'm going back to try to win an Olympic gold medal. But I do want to live a long time, and I like those workouts.
It sounds like Terry and Steve Frazier, actually. Him and Frazier, that's what they do. They starts as a hand fight. Next thing you know, they're an hour and a half grind. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's important because that's who you are. And you know what? If we could get everybody as a coach, if we could get everybody up to that type of mentality. Okay, so here's what I did. I kind of, I made a few mistakes in my life. So the night before the World Championships in Sofia, Bulgaria, we had a lot of downtime. For some reason, it was in the afternoon, and we didn't have to wrestle that night. So it was a lot of downtime till the next day. And, I might have had 2 matches on that gold medal final day, one in the morning and then one in the evening. But I had a lot of downtime the night before, and they went 5 days each guy. So you only had like one match, and I had 2 matches in the last day. But so when I went to the room, I actually, the night before the World Championships, which I have 2 more matches because it's a different type of, it's not semis and finals. You get down to a round robin of 3, and then you have to wrestle both guys. So, so anyway, I think I only had to wrestle that final day, actually. Well, maybe it was a couple. No, that was the Olympics. So maybe in the Worlds, I only had to go once in the final day. But anyway, so the night before, 5 hours of kind of downtime, and I got my calendar out, and I did that 365 for me as an athlete. Now, don't get me wrong, because if I had a perfect coach over me, he might say, hey, don't be counting your chickens now. You're not even finished with this. You got to focus on this. Well, maybe this way I could relax a little bit. And I was pretty confident. And I don't think a lot would have changed if I would have lost. There would have been some changes. But I felt like I mapped out my next year's training program again. I didn't go 365. I probably did it in phases, more like maybe 12 phases, 14 phases. I didn't go 365, but it took me a couple hours and helped me get ready. And I had already penciled myself in there, world champion. And so I'm not counting my chickens, but I just said, no, I'm world champ. I'm going to win the world championships here. And then here's my process to go to the next step for the Olympic Games.
Okay,
So,
Coach. But we have a lot of high school coaches. We have some college coaches. I know you got 14 phases, and I don't want to just give them some sort of roadmap as to where you're going preseason, then just off season, preseason is 365, but kind of give them a generalized roadmap, and then maybe a place where you spell it out in a different coaching format, and you really
I'll
go through.
kind of just run through it real quick, just because
Okay.
I usually like to start in logical order, though. logical order really is when kids come back to school. And so that's September 1st or high school. There's no logical perfect formula, because in high school, chances are your kids are going to play football, then they're going to wrestle, and then they're going to play baseball, run track, then, that type of stuff. And then I kind of look at it like in high school, real quickly in high school, I would say that, if they have another sport, that's great. But, I wouldn't push the 365 of just wrestling. I wouldn't push it. Hey, if they want to push it that way, that's fine. If it's real, and that's where the coach has to make the decision, because you got to be pretty committed to go 365 with one sport in high school. Right. And so, so I'm just going to say, okay, they come back to school, they go out for football, then they come out for wrestling. Okay, so then, after that, they go out for, say, baseball in the spring. And then, I'm going to sneak, if wrestling's pretty big to them, I'm going to sneak that summer wrestling in, that freestyle or Greco-Roman, or both freestyle and Greco-Roman in. And I'm going to sneak that Fargo in somewhat, if you can. So, that's kind of who you're dealing with. If by chance, you're only you got a kid that's just going to wrestle full time, that's even a harder process at that age to keep him engaged. It's got to be pretty unique. Maybe he's small. Maybe he wrestles in a lot of different tournaments that are year round and those types of things. So that, that's unusual, but it's more usual now than it is. But you got to also look at the factor that you got to keep them excited. And I think we can. And that's why I like two styles. Excuse me, I like three styles. And even if I'm thinking about it now, I know the Russians, what's the other sport they do over there? Sambo or something like that? I don't even know what the hell that is, but I tell you what, I read all the time, but that they're doing, some of the great wrestlers have done this, and it must be good for them. But I remember a guy named Teddy Schiavelli back when I was wrestling that was doing some moves that I never saw before in my life, and he was doing them on people that were world champions, and it was Sambo moves. So, it doesn't matter what move you get it from, what sport. If it works in wrestling, you do it. I foot sweep in the world semifinals that saved my ass. Excuse my language, but it saved my butt. I hit a foot sweep and just about knocked the guy out, and I was behind, and it was still a lot of time left in the match, but it a lot of people don't hit foot sweeps. It's kind of a judo move. So you can't grab the clothing. There are foot sweeps, but you got to learn to do it pretty well. So, if Sambo, I used a soccer ball when I trained against the wall. I was on a small 12 by 12, and I had a wooden wall. So it wasn't concrete or anything, because, you hit your head or you bounced off the wooden wall. But I took a soccer ball, and I used to practice leg sweeps, soccer kicks with my right leg, and then it would hit the wall, bounce, come back, and then I would hit it with my left foot, and it'd go back, and it bounce back. And it's only about 5, 6, 7 feet away, close. So it's not like it's a long, but it would be a foot sweep type of manner. Back and forth, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, with a soccer ball. And then I had a light dummy with handles that I would do the same drill with. But I'd kick it up and it'd fly, then I'd kick the other one and it'd fly, and it'd kick the other one and it'd fly. And what did it do? It gave me a world title. If I had not caught him in that foot sweep and knocked him out because he landed on his head, and then I kind of shook him as I turned him, because I think he probably was injured, but I didn't want nobody to know it. But it's one of these things, and they don't look out. There's not a lot of injury in the international. Is there is there slams? I don't think so. I mean, is there such thing as a slam in international wrestling?
I think
don't
that's
know.
just an extra point, right?
Yeah, no.
It's the
Yeah,
high
yeah.
arch, right? Isn't it the high arch?
Yeah.
You know, the extra point comes up in the high. So, yeah, the farther you can put him up and the harder you can put him down. But
Amen.
so, that's why, there's things that you can actually add. It doesn't have to be football. Football's, I mean, if I was going to be a football player, I'd probably want to be a linebacker. I probably want to be a linebacker so I could hit my double legs and stop them, coming through if I was on the defense, that type of thing. Or, a guy where I'd have a lot of chance to use wrestling moves. So, it's one of those things. But I would say that high school kids mostly need some pretty good guidance year round. I just happen to be a lightweight, happened to have a football assistant that was the head wrestling coach. And he looked at me and he wanted to save my health for wrestling. Because he said, all you're doing is looking up to these guys by that, like this way, and not so much that they're better than you, but I'm looking out for you for injury. I don't think I could have actually done just wrestling because I've been used to all my different sports, swimming, baseball, football, wrestling, of course. And I even ran track one year. So I was active, but not once 10th grade hit and I started going undefeated in my sophomore year. And I went to wrestling practice, not even in the wrestling room at that time. They had a wrestling mat laying on the balcony of the second floor of our gymnasium at that time. And my wrestling coach suggested that you and the rest of the guys that aren't out for football start practicing for wrestling. And I think it was fine for me because I was small. But then what really got me sticking to it is that I won. I won. I took a state championship as a first year high school wrestler. And that motivation kept me going. And so you need that motivation. And it kept me going forever. I'm still going. Like right now, I'm motivated because of my career in wrestling and what it meant to me. It's you don't forget it when you have that much success and opportunity. But a lot of it was in coaching. Most of it, most of my success has been in coaching. So
Let me just jump in and coach. This is kind of what I remember, and I want you can interrupt me as I go and fill in the blanks a little bit. But I remember okay, after NCAA, so let's start on day one. There was about a few week period there where it was pretty lax, and of course they started adding with NCAA. There's only a certain number of days you can mandate practices and things like that. But that
you really follow those? Did you really follow those? Did you really follow when they started telling you that you couldn't wrestle in practice?
No. But I think as a coaching staff, what you can mandate and what you have optional practices, right? But anyway, so there was a few week period there where people were just maybe got away from the mat a little bit, did some running, did some lifting, this and that. But then I think for the most part by mid to late April, people were starting to get on that mat again, and some people were training for the U.S. Open. At that time the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, now the RTC, you would say. Those guys are getting ready for the U.S. Open and the international season. So you jump in with them, and a lot of time maybe junior trials and stuff like that were in May and stuff. And then it seemed like in early June that it switched to another phase again. So I would say there was about a 3-week period where it was pretty lax and just kind of time away and refreshing everything. And then there was probably about a 6-week period where there was, some freestyle season in there. And then there was a season, we always had camps in like July, from what I remember. So the month that, 2, 3, 4 weeks in June, somewhere in there, again, it was time for people to go home, see their families if they wanted. But then we came back for camps, and during camps was, we were working the kids hard, but coach was also working us hard, right? We had practices 3 to 4 times a week, but they were pretty good practices, right? I remember Royce Eldrick complaining a lot about conditioning, right? But there were pretty tough practices. We did a lot of wrestling, maybe a couple technical areas from whatever coach wanted us to be focusing on. And then we had about a 4 to 6 week camp period where during those 4 to 6 weeks of camp, there was pretty extensive work. And then it was like another phase in August where we had, again, time away before school started to go see our families home and refresh and get ready for the preseason. So then the preseason was really interesting to me because every year during my time in Iowa, it was different. But it was about reducing people's body fat, building that base conditioning, maybe some base technique that we needed to work on and things like that. But it was mostly like some years it was really structured where we'd have, like we met as a team and we were doing a run and doing some hills and things like that. And other years it was, between the first week of September and the third week of October or second week of October, you've got to get 15 to 20 runs in or whatever it was. And you can do them on whatever days you want. You could have did them all in a row. You could have did 2 a day for 6 days or 8 days, but you had to get those runs in and they progressed through, as the runs up. And so the run was on the board and you did it and, maybe you did it, 2 a week or 3 a week, but it was kind of like that. But in other years, it was very structured. And then there was a couple of days a week where we'd be on the mat, just longer training and more technical work, and people would work on their own.
Do you think, Terry?
Go ahead.
Do you think, Terry, that some of those differences came because of the makeup of your teams, the individuals that you might have had on your teams, that kind of thing?
I would think that's, and Coach can answer better, but I would think that probably, what kind of leadership and what kind of attitude and mindset he thought he had on the team.
Right.
And thought he could trust in them and to do it, on their own, or if he had to be there to make sure everyone did it right. But yeah, that's what I would say. That's how it was adjusted. Coach.
No, that's good. I mean, I think that's a very good synopsis of things because it depended a lot on who really was there and their mentality. Were they dependent on a coach, or were they dependent on a workout, or could they do their workout and get a great one in? So it's like you said a couple things early on, like you said, we'd go for runs, we'd do some lifting. I don't know if I'm just telling you, did you ever just do a run in your life? Just go out and run?
No, I didn't. But I think that like the minimal.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But because you were there running hard,
yeah,
you were affecting. If I had nobody running hard, then I would have to step in more. But as the rules said, you can't step in as much. You had to have the makeup of a team that you had some examples. Especially as the rules become more difficult, which they seem to be becoming more difficult, and I don't think they're letting up. You still have to have those examples because very seldom are you going to beat somebody on a mat that all you've done in your life. I mean, you could because you're so talented that you could just do it. But even the talented, unbelievably, are going to get in a tough match. Right. And so when you went out for the run, It wasn't just a run. It was a hard run. When you went into the weight room, it wasn't just I lifted some weights. It was,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden when you're on your 12 pump and you're on your rep and you might yell over to, hey Troy, come over and help me in the last 3. I need some help in these last 3. So you just didn't put it down when you couldn't do anymore. And then all of a sudden there's people there watching you, and you got a talented kid. He's getting something out of that. Because usually when he gets to number 10, he could probably do 5 more and he'll stop at number 10 just because he doesn't really need to, but he does need to in his mind. He does do it, and he's got that feeling. Now, when you're just starting a new program out, that's a little difficult if you don't have any leaders or don't have any guys on there, but that's where you got to coach a little more. But again, you got to coach to the point where you can really keep your job. That's
And I think you talked about it last time. You're starting with an example. You're starting with that one. Maybe it's that one person, that group of guys, whatever. If you have a core group of 3-4 guys or whatever, but you're starting with those people and building from there. And everyone else, we got to get them up to speed, right? And you're not coaching down, You're lifting
Exactly.
up.
What I really like, though, is in your training different time periods, that, you have this recovery. And really, the recovery really isn't like you're not doing anything.
Right.
It's like, okay, so I want to go fishing in Canada. And I fly into this resort, or not a resort, a cabin on a lake. I'm the only cabin on the lake, and there's a boat there, and there's not a whole lot of a lot of things that you do. Like you don't have a gym, you don't have a sauna, you got water, you can go swimming, or but the cabin's on land, and you probably got some trails. It's like you got trees with limbs, so it's kind of like, okay, I'm gonna go fishing, and I like that. But I'm either before or after fishing, I'm gonna run that trail hard. I'm gonna dive off that dock and swim across the lake and back. I'm gonna go to that tree, and I'm gonna climb that tree, and I'm gonna do chins sometime during that day. I'm gonna get 20, 30, 40 minutes of workout. And with that type of mentality, you're going to have good teams. You're going to have good athletes. But when they just completely get away from it and do nothing, that means they're totally at the pro level or at the upper level. But then when you have somebody at that upper level that is really talented, but he's got that mentality like that too, he's probably going to get an edge. I mean, there's just always a higher level that you can figure out. And again, you have to kind of, if you can get your athletes to really be their own coach, except they know they got a coach, it really helps. And that's probably the demise. Had a lot of talent, winning championships, but didn't have the example as much of the dedication or the determination or the lifestyle that was just going to keep it going. And so that, that makes a big difference. And I think that you always, in these phases, always allow a training phase quite often. So the season starts, you got tournaments, you go places, and all of a sudden you have your team of 30 or top 3 in the world for the USA effort, and and you look after 2 months of competition or 5 weeks of competition or 3 tournaments, some dual meets or whatever it is, and you analyze those guys, and then you draw up another training session for them. So it's based on what you see. It's based on what you see.
Yeah.
Every year is different. You can't just
Yeah.
have one single year automatic outline that works every year. Every year is going to be different.
Right. Right.
Hey, Terry,
And
we're getting into
Training sessions are valuable. Week long, 7 days, 10 days. You need those.
yeah.
what was that? What kind of sessions?
Training sessions.
Training,
Just
hard
training
training
sessions.
session.
Yeah.
Training sessions.
So I know we're coming into it's 7:50, 7:51. We're not on the clock every time Coach Gable's on. We're here as long as Coach Gable wants to stay here. But Frank, I know there's some questions, and Coach Gable, normally, about halfway through, I find something to pick on Terry about because we like to laugh here too. So we like you to come up with some stories, just a story or something.
So let me just finish a little bit of the thought process we were on, and then.
Okay. But
And
we
then-
gotta laugh because this shows. We gotta
Yeah,
laugh.
well,
We have some sort of
We're
laugh.
gonna laugh because Coach Campbell just outlined your next few days because you're going fishing. So before you get up and go fishing in the morning, now you know the plan.
Okay. I'll run up the hill.
Right?
I'll
Right.
try to do a chin up. Okay.
Okay.
And no, I'm there.
Okay. So let me just step back a little bit. We talked about that preseason a little bit, and then what I remember, Coach, right after the preseason, there was about a week-long period where again it was like there was nothing scheduled from a schedule standpoint. I think it was kind of again to let's get out of your system what you need to. The season's starting next week. Let's make sure that we're refreshed and ready to go.
Well, okay, the rules were starting to play a factor now. So I had to figure out how to beat the rules without being illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
So I needed another week.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so here's what happened. So we went those 4 to 5 to 6, it probably went 4 weeks hard in October and maybe the first week or 2 in November. And I needed 7 days somewhere on my, what was it, 156-day plan or something? Can't remember what it was.
84, I don't even know what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had too many days on there because once you start, you got to count them all unless you don't have practice.
Right.
Well, what better time after you just went 4 to 6 weeks where the guys are now having to make the team and they're having tryouts, and then within a week after that, competition starting. What better time are they going to be the best mentally together, where they're not going to go out and drink beer, raise hell? Of course, you don't have to. I'm worried about you ever doing that, but maybe a couple
Troy,
times.
though.
No, I didn't.
Troy.
But so all of a sudden, you gave them time off right when it was they want to make the team.
Yeah.
And so what are they going to do? They're still going to come to practice on their own. And they're still going to go to bed at night. They're still going to eat right because they got to weigh in.
Yeah.
So
right.
they
So right
didn't
after.
need me. I got 7 free days of unbelievable work that nobody else got in the country. Nobody else. They all had this 7 days count. I didn't have to do those 7 days. Why?
Yeah.
Because I knew that they were going to be absolutely perfect during them 7 days.
Yeah, and then that next week when we came back, that's when the first wrestle-offs were, right? And that's reason. And then we went into it, and this is, Coach, you just said it without even going through it, and because then we went on, we had a Rust Lofts, then the season started. So it's the beginning of the season. Then we had a Rust Lofts, we had a few competitions and maybe a couple dual meets. And then we went home for Christmas for 3, 4, 5 days. And then we back to the Midlands tournament.
Then you had another training session. Yeah.
And then the training period, like there was a 10-day period. So yes, however long it was, I felt like 5 weeks, but it was
whining about that session.
yeah, for 2 weeks.
Saying.
And but it was a hard, and I think probably the hardest training phase of the year. We were
Yeah, it was, because you're not going to do it right before the Nationals.
Yeah.
And you're going to have about 5 weeks starting the middle of January in those days till towards the end of February. So then you got the tournaments starting. But you're going to have lots of matches. And so then you're going to get evaluated again after all those matches. I mean, I already had one evaluation. And that evaluation determined what I would do in those 13 days or 12 days or 8 days or whatever you can get. And
we didn't have school during that time too, so
school. I can go
there was no excuse for I have class or this or that. We could have practice 10 hours.
Morning, noon, and night. Needed it.
Yeah. So 5 weeks out before the big tournaments is when you busted their chops prior to the Midlands. 5 weeks out of the Big Tens, probably.
Yeah. But
And then we had the dual meet season through January and February, and then like let's say that Big Tens were the first week of March or first week, just then that last 2 weeks of February, the third week of February was a pretty hard week too. And then we tapered down into Big Tens a little bit, but
well, remember, we were
where
in
it was.
Big Tens a lot. We won the Big Tens every year, in fact. But Big Tens, it's a big event.
Yeah.
But you know what? I didn't put the emphasis on that event because that was supposed to be. I called it. When you go to high school, what do you go to? Sectionals, districts, or something?
Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but I used to call them sectionals or districts, the Big Tens. Just for emphasis.
That's why you won so many nationals.
Well, I don't want to take away from that because it is a big thing, but in reality, in the peaking process, it's not as big as the next one, and so it's a qualifier. That's what I called it, a qualifier.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it is or not, but anymore.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So then we'd have I don't know how long it was, but it was about a 5 to 7 day period before Big Tens where it was a pretty hard period. Then we'd kick off a little bit into Big Tens. And then after Big Tens, again, we'd come home, have a couple days, and then there was like a 4-day period that was pretty
Exactly.
And then of course then you're resting up and being ready for nationals, and we were always ready, right? And whether we won or performed well all the time, that's another thing. But we were ready. There's not a doubt. We were ready than anyone.
So this word recovery is really valuable in a lot of ways because if you're not recovered, you don't have your best performance. But it's more than that even. It's the recovery to really get you ready also. And so that's why I have these recovery times, but you have to recover every day somewhat. But the coach can actually push you through that recovery sometimes just because, okay, you can because it's not the most important time of the year. So say for an example, these college kids, they're hard to get to bed at night sometimes. So if I'm going to have them go morning practices, which I did, it wouldn't be so much at the end when I couldn't take a chance because I don't know when Royce Alger was going to go to bed. I just, I couldn't count on him going to bed at 9 o'clock at night. So I wanted to make sure that during those time periods, I might not have those morning practices just because I want to get him to peak and to feel good and to be ready. But during the year earlier, I might have done that. I'm taking a chance, but I can take a chance then. And it's also part of the peaking process too. So
Plus, I remember us doing, Coach, we did some things like this where we'd have a morning practice, let's say on a Tuesday, and it would be a hard practice. We'd have a morning practice, and then we'd be off Tuesday night, we'd be off Wednesday morning, and we'd come in Wednesday night and have a hard practice. So really, we had a day off. It wasn't a day off, if you're looking at Tuesday and Wednesday, but we had more than 24 hours off because we were on the mat maybe at 9 in the morning, so let's say 7 in the morning, and we weren't back on the mat until the next day at 3 p.m. Right? So there was a good time period there where, probably 30 hours where there wasn't a scheduled workout. So your body has to recover, right? And we could come back and have another hard practice. And even though
exactly,
and say, well, we trained hard both days, but we really had a day off in between.
right. No.
And so
you always can't count the days. You got to break them down. So it's like, even though I said 365 days, that's just one plan, but within each plan, there's a day, and that day is broken down into 24 hours. So you got lots of different options.
That's a lot of math, people. That's a lot of math.
That's why you go to school.
That's right.
Why you got to
right.
figure that out.
We really, Coach, I know you're coming back, and we want to thank you so much for that. So Frank, you got to get to these questions. We got some questions out
We
there.
got questions.
Yeah, we've got some questions here. So Sean had one, and that was, it seems hard to get kids to buy in to year-round focus. Okay, and he doesn't say training. He says year-round focus. So any tips on getting them to see the big picture?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what we were talking about. Your 365 fits everybody, but each guy gets a different plan. So, depending on who he is, he may need more recovery time. He may need more time, away from home or away from the campus, that type of thing. So, it's just, you got a team and then you got a group of individuals. So you got to do a team plan for 365, which is general. And now you're doing a specific plan for 365 with each guy. And when you can get the team to understand that, then that helps because they realize you're looking out for them. But at the same time, they're not mad also when this guy all of a sudden isn't at practice, because they understand that this is what he needs. We're not slighting anybody. So you got two plans, a team plan and an individual plan, but it's still 365. And so, that's a lot of paperwork. But you know what? That's fun paperwork. That's fun paperwork. It really is. I mean, I don't know if I would want to go in and write up the test for science or biology or.
No, you don't.
I don't know about that. But for wrestling, that's fun. Training sessions for each guy, and it works pretty good.
Terry, you got anything to add to that?
No, I think it's just, it's helping them understand that, there's a price to that goal, right? I mean, if it's truly important to them and they say they want to win the state championship or a national championship, then there's a price to be paid for that, right? And so somewhere along the line, we've got to have some focus and some work and some discipline and structure. And so I think it's working with them, that, like Coach said, helping, showing them the plan and helping them see it and helping them find value in what we're doing, right? And it doesn't have to be, I never ever felt like being coached under Coach Gable, I never ever felt like we were pushed way too hard. We worked hard. I know we worked hard. I never felt like we overdid it, right? Because he knew his athletes, right? And he could read individuals, and I think that helping them understand that, hey, we're all working together here, and we're all on the same team, but they're the major player, right? And I think coach even said that today. He said, as soon as an athlete realizes they have to be their own coach a little bit, that's when you know you have something, right? And I think that that's the one thing that for me, coming into the Iowa program, I think that I understood that from the beginning, right? That, participation in this plan was the most important participation in it, right? And so I think it's helping kids understand that.
Here's something that's really valuable. So, you got a kid, and you can see. I don't like to use the word weakness. I use strength, less strength, that type of thing. So you got a kid with a vulnerability of one of his less strengths is something, and you know it. But you got to go about figuring out how to beat that less strength and bringing it up to a strength without him knowing it or her knowing it. Because if you're just working on that and they know that's the issue and they know that's what you're trying to do, it's going to get in their head that, like, this is my problem. I don't want them to even know I know their problem sometimes. I'm going to try to solve their problem without their ever even knowing I solved it. And
great point.
Because they just think I'm doing something for them, but they don't realize I'm trying to take something that is their vulnerability away. Because the more times you emphasize their vulnerability,
Sure.
they're going to be vulnerable.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that right now. I'm doing that. I'm still coaching. I got grandkids. There's no way I'm going to tell my grandkid he's anything but this and that and this and that. I'm not going to tell him he needs a lot more strength. Maybe I'll say, hey, let's get stronger. But I'm going to probably work his workouts to try to eliminate if there's any flaws without him knowing it. And even if you have to send somebody to another tournament to get some wins, you're telling them something that this is good for them, and here's why. You need a bunch of wins and stuff like that. But there might be an underlying reason beyond that too. But they don't need to know that. So I'm just going to try to see in baseball. The other day, I watched one of my grandkids. He wasn't doing so well. I didn't tell him that, but he couldn't hit he didn't get a hit. I mean, you get up to bat, you're supposed to get a damn hit, aren't you?
33%.
That or you walk, right?
You're a Hall of Famer, okay?
You either walk or get a hit, right?
Lean in. Okay.
Yeah. So he just wasn't. And I knew that he's a great hitter. See, that's the thing. So I knew he needed a hit. So he got a hit. Great. I felt really good. But he needed to get another hit as soon as possible. And the coach, so they had a double hitter. So the kid comes up to me and he said, I'm not playing the second game. I said, you're not playing the second game? Oh, coach told me I got that hit. Now I'm okay. What? You're not okay. You got to get up and hit the ball You got to get 10 hits in a row for me to be okay. You know, then I might say you're okay. But I wasn't going to also emphasize to him that, oh, I knew you hadn't got, you're over 15. And now you got a hit. Just let him get the hit and let him get another hit. But you got to play him to get the hit. And and the guy really kind of was thinking, well, he solved his problem. Oh, you know what? He needed to get a lot of hits in a row. Then he's going to feel better. And it just so happens the next game was a pretty easy pitcher. So what easier time than to get somebody's confidence is when you don't have a guy throwing 85 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour at this age or whatever it is. And you can probably have a better chance. It doesn't matter, you know, if the guy's, you know, unless you go up and tell him, like, hey, that second hit you just got, oh, the guy was only throwing 40 miles an hour. That's why you got that hit. Well, that's kind of what he's telling him. No, he gets a hit, he gets a hit. You don't tell him that, you just, hey, you know, you're good, you know. You don't tell him that there's the worst pitcher in the world that you got the hit off of. I mean, you can't do that to your kids. You got to build them up. And when you build them up and they get 6, 7 hits in a row, and it don't matter who, you know, they're more likely to get a hit against an 80-mile-an-hour pitcher now that they've done that, instead of saying, oh, man, that guy wasn't any good and you got a hit. You know, it's funny stuff how it happens. And it was pretty innocent, too, by everybody, the coach and everything. He just, you know, he didn't realize he had a coach there that was standing there that knows every trick in the book, because I've been there. I've done that, you know, and like I said, I had to pull Lou Bannick off the mat out of practice, and nobody does that. I mean, you can't let one guy not practice. Oh, yes, you can, if the team says so. If they realize that they're thinking the same way you, because you're on the same wavelength. So yeah, you can do those things, but you know, you can't do them by not thinking before you talk. You gotta understand all that. Lots of thinking, lots of recovery. Thank you.
Frank, Chip's got something to ask Coach.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was actually funny, Coach. We're looking at our last webinar and how we one of the questions was about overtraining, and you said, well, there's no such thing as overtraining, and there is such thing as overtraining. It all depends on the mindset you go into the workout. So it was interesting there.
Oh, for sure. If you're, yeah, I mean, it depends again on your mentality, but you know, if a coach makes you, if you just did an unbelievable workout, and then the next day he makes you do the same workout again, like a weightlifting workout, you know, that's probably overtraining a little bit, you know. Right. And so, you know, you just gotta be smart. Go ahead.
So, last question here. I think we're kind of running out of some time, but Chip Halverson has got one for you, and this really fits well for both of you. So he goes, I'm sitting watching the program with 2 teenage daughters. So what do you think the future of women's wrestling looks like? And then any suggestions for training young ladies?
I don't know if Terry can answer that.
You're asking me? Or Terry?
I think that
you're Terry, right?
It was asked to you because he actually knows you and wanted to be reminded of where you actually
was it 84 Olympics? I think he met you.
Yeah, he wrestled for Larry.
No, I'm confused here. Who's answering the question? Me?
Chip Halverson asked the question
to me.
He asked Larry Leonard. He wrestled for Larry Leonard in Montana.
Yeah,
he met at the '84 Olympics. But
and I'll answer it, and he can. We have 2 answers here.
Okay.
So, the future of women's wrestling. First,
yeah. What do you see the future, kind of the way it's going, or kind of if you had to predict?
I think it's what's absolutely so valuable. It's unbelievably valuable. I mean, I don't think any other sport out there is gonna, you know, maybe football, but you know, almost every sport you do both genders. You know, it's just it's that, and football's powerful. I mean, that's just bottom line. They're powerful. And wrestling, we can't afford not to have whatever we can get to make sure that we're as good as we can be. And the fact that it's now understood that it's really good for them. It's really good for them. And it works well. And it's probably one of our big saviors right now. Just in moving forward. So the second part, what was the second part of the question?
Oh, that was
Training young
good.
ladies.
What's that?
Training young ladies.
Oh, here's
Is there even a difference?
Yeah, I'm not, this is where he can handle, but this is not really, because I haven't really trained a lot of young ladies, but I did train, I had 3 or 4 practices with one of the girls at the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. And it was really surprising to me that when I asked her the question, and I don't know if I said this last time, but I asked her the question, I says, now when I train you, do I have to be different? Do I have to be aware that something about females that I need to be aware of? Because I only train males, mostly. I mean, I train my daughters a little bit on certain things in workouts, but not in wrestling or anything like that. And what really surprised me is, again, it's mentality, I think, right there. And she told me, she goes, well, I said, now, when you go in the weight room, what kind of strength will you do compared to the guys? And she goes, oh, well, they're so much stronger than me. They're probably, I probably need about 50% of the weight that a guy my category would say. And I said, holy cow. Can't believe she said that. We got some room here. I'm looking for, throw any weight at me. I'm strong as any guy. I'm even though it may not be and realistically, totally, but that mind factor again. Here she's telling me that, this is a big difference between us and guys. I don't think there should be any difference when you're telling me something. But, and I can understand, but it kind of shocked me. And it made me realize where we have to go yet. So anyway, I don't know if you understand that at all.
Oh, I got it.
So from my perspective, I mean, obviously our growth with women's wrestling has been unbelievable, right? We 2 years ago, we had 6 states that were sanctioned women's wrestling, and now we're up to 29. And we have just shy of 90 college programs, and we just got emerging sports status with all 3 divisions, Division 1, 2, and 3, NCAA divisions. And so how that moves forward now, and I just learned the specifics of this yesterday, how that moves forward is we're an emerging sport within the NCAA. How we move to a championship status is we need 40 NCAA schools. Well, right now we're at 39 NCAA schools. So with one more school, we are eligible for championship status. So once we get to 40, we have to maintain 40 programs for 1 year, and then it goes to the NCAA for basically a vote to move us to championship status or not. So the earliest, as of right now, the earliest we could be have a NCAA national championship would be 2022, 2023. And that would be the earliest, because it'll take that process. We have to get to 40, then we have to hold it for a year, then they go to another vote, and then we go from there. So, and then once one of the divisions, Division 1, 2, or 3, moves to once one of the divisions has 40, they're automatic. Let's say the closest right now is Division 3. And the difference between Division 1, 2, and 3 is Division 3 is a non-scholarship, non-funded, right? From a scholarship standpoint. And so they'll probably reach the 40 mark first. So once they do, they separate. And which I don't know if I'm for. I wish we could keep them together until we get all of them to 40, then separate if we need to. I don't even know if we need to separate, but that's more within administration and those kind of things. But once one of the divisions gets to 40, then they'll separate and have, say, a Division 3 championship, and we'll have a championship with Division 1 and 2 together until one of those separates. It gets to 40, then they'll separate it out, and then we'll have 3 NCAA championships eventually. So that's how that works. So the future from for a young female athlete right now, there's so much opportunity coming your way, right? And then we also have NAIA, right, that are in the same, they're in an invitational status right now. Once they get to 40 programs, I think they're at 29 right now. And that may even be outdated. It might be in the mid 30s right now. But once they get to 40, then they can have a NAIA championship. And they have an invitational championship right now, but a true NAIA championship, they have to have 40 schools. So that's kind of the growth of and how that'll move forward at the college level. And the thing that does is it just creates so much more opportunity in the sport of wrestling for coaching staffs, for young females being coaches. That's one of the next big pushes is, getting females ready to be the next coaches of high school programs and college programs, and giving them the right mentorship and knowledge and education so they can be not just be a coach, but be an exceptional coach and build a great program. Because we don't want to put people in positions either that they're not ready for. Right? We want to make sure that they're developed along the way and have great mentoring. So when they get into those positions, they're rising instead of staying stable or declining. Right? We want to make sure we're building in the right direction. And so that takes time, and if you look at any other sport, that takes time to do that. And I just look at my own development as a coach, right? I was an assistant coach at the college level for 8 years before I was ever put in a head coach position. And I needed that because even when I got in it after 8 years, there was a lot to learn that I thought I knew, right? And it was a little bit different job because I was at college programs, and now all of a sudden I'm at the national office with the national team, and that's a different job anyways. But there was a lot to learn, right? And so I think that, that's how we're looking at how women's wrestling is moving forward. I mean, we have unbelievable growth right now. Training females, there's differences. There's no doubt, like Coach was saying, there's differences, right? But bottom line is, coaching is coaching. I mean, when I first came into this job, I'm a wrestling coach, right? I wasn't a female or a male wrestling coach. I'm a wrestling coach in charge of the women's program. There was things I had to learn to identify better and reach the people in a better way. I think communication is somewhat different. I think conflict resolution and things like that, females handle in a different way, and that's something that I had to address differently than I would have with a team of guys that I do with a team of ladies. It's different, right? And I just think that the confidence is different with a male athlete and a female athlete, and what Coach was just talking about, right? If Coach would have asked the guy how much can you lift or whatever, they'd say, I don't know, what are you going to throw on the bar, right? That's what I'm going to lift, and so I think the confidence is a little bit different, and you just have to be aware of those things. And I'm not saying, I've been coaching women in the sport of wrestling now for 18 years. It doesn't mean I know all the answers, right? Because every athlete that comes forward brings you new issues and new problems that we have to get through, right? But there's definitely some learning there, right? And there's some differences, but bottom line is it shouldn't keep anyone from stepping in and helping out the women in the sport. Coaching is coaching, motivating is motivating, teaching is teaching. And I think if your heart's in the right place, that's really what matters, right? And you know, because it's about the people in front of you. And I heard this from Coach first and foremost when I left the University of Iowa to coach at Oregon State. Coach's his question to me was, "Why are you leaving?" You know, and you know, I just said, "Well, I just feel like there was a team out there that I could help, and you know, they were. I could bring intensity to it. I could bring some different expectations, possibly, and a different vision, and you know, I remember him saying that then you're leaving for the right reasons, right? And he said, "Don't ever think it will be hard to coach against the Hawkeyes." And I remember saying, "Why did you say that to me?" And he said, "Because it's all about the people in front of you." And that's all coaching is. It's about the people in front of you, the relationships that you build with the people in front of you and helping them accomplish what they want to do in this sport. And hopefully through that pursuit, you know, you're developing a strong human being that can carry themselves through life with dignity and class and integrity and strength, and be a great part of society. And that's what it's really about, right? And so, and those are the things I got from the sport, from coach and coaching staffs that he put together, right? I mean, they taught me an unbelievable amount of, not just about the sport of wrestling, but about myself. You know, and now it's my turn to pay that forward, right? and to move that forward. So yeah, I mean, the future of women's wrestling is bright, right? And I really do see, and I've said this for a long time, I see that the point in time when the U.S. is going to dominate the world of women's wrestling. And I think we're getting closer and closer and closer to that with all these steps and growth that we've had. So.
Okay, well, gentlemen, let me just.
Which has one more thing.
Yeah, I got one more thing here. Just, you know, I pick up on little things. You know, it's number 40 programs, and we got to maintain 40 programs. I mean, I don't even like that word, you know, maintain. If I was as good as I was as a sophomore, trying to win 7 years later, you know, I would have never, I'd been 0-40, but, you know, it's like those 40 teams, when they have a chance, when they reach 40, you know, that year, it got to be more programs being added. You know, it's not maintaining 40. It's all of a sudden by the end of that year, there's 46 programs. And if we lose one for some reason, you know, whatever reason, we're still fine. You know, so that's just kind of a wrestler's mentality. So it's like right now, we got this coronavirus, you know, and it's not good from a wrestling point of view or a lot of people's point of view. And it's just, my word on that is it's real simple. We need a smart scientist that wrestled to pin down this virus. That's what we need with that mentality. And that's the kind of, you know, the way it is. And it's not going to be easy, but it's a factor that's working against us right now, even though we see programs adding. But when I see one that is dropping, that's not the norm right now. That's not the norm. And they're not doing their homework, but they're doing what they think they need to do to stay above water, I guess. And I mean, if Stanford, I mean, if you're a person on the street, and if all of a sudden something goes wrong and everything goes backwards because of that, then you haven't done enough homework. You haven't done enough homework. You know, and so I'm lucky because I had some good people around me when I was a kid. Good parents, you know, good coaches, good teachers. And so, you know, think something goes wrong, I get some good direction, and I have some good direction, and I'm not going to falter because something goes wrong. And I think that's real key. That's real key right now. And that's what I really like that I keep seeing a lot, especially there's more programs being added. Because there's a lot of people that are knowledgeable and prepared and understand we're going to get through this thing. But, you know, it might take a wrestler's mentality to get us through. That's the way it is.
I think we sanctioned 4 states right now during the coronavirus. During this time frame, we've sanctioned 4 states, right? I mean, so it's moving forward, right? We got some people in there fighting and continuing on, right? So.
Absolutely. All right, that's good.
All right, thank you, Coach. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And thank everyone for being on.
Yeah, thanks for everybody joining us. It's been great, Coach. We really appreciate you. Appreciate you spending your time coming in. And again, if there's anything we can do that you think we should put on the chat forum, send it to Terry. We'll put it out on our blasts and save Stanford. All right, gentlemen, happy Thursday. Terry, I'll make the Russian do the pull-ups on the tree.
Yeah, we're gonna ask about your fishing workout next.
No. Okay, I'm dealing with it now. I'm the coach. He's the athlete. I'm gonna have Vlad. He'll do the pull-ups. He'll run the hill. I'll do the fishing. Okay, Coach Gable, thank you. Coach Steiner.
Oh, wait a minute. Don't you train for life?
I'm getting ready for death, I think.
Oh,
Getting closer.
don't tell me that. I'm gonna have to work on you.
Okay.
All right.
Save a few days.
Yeah, take care. Yeah.
We'll see you guys. Happy
All right.
to see you.
Later.